loved games. I played a lot of games. And I feel like I've grown up, right? I'm a smarter and wiser and more experienced person now. Games are a lot bigger, but they haven't really grown, right? They haven't kept pace with me. As a player, I have this desire to be transformed, like Daniel mentioned. But I'm not getting it, right? At least not most of the time. I get very frustrated by games. I'll go to the store, I'll buy 10 games for $60 each, right? That's $600. That's a lot of money. And I'll go through the stack and I'll start playing them one at a time, and I'll play them for about half an hour, and then I've pretty much gotten all that game has for me, because it doesn't have anything fundamentally valuable to me that any other game hasn't already given to me. And yeah, I mean, I still love games, but it's frustrating, and I think that we can do a lot better as an industry. So I'm encouraging all of us to make things that are worthwhile or deep or interesting. But what is worthwhile? That's a very subjective question, right? And surely your ideas about that are different than mine, and games that I would make, given left to my own devices, would be very different from what you make. But as designers, there's an entire community, right? With all of our different ideas about what's worthwhile, we can at least hold the intention to make our games embody those ideas, right? To be worthwhile, and to respect the player's potential to live a high-quality life, right? And not treat players as somebody from whom we're trying to siphon money or attention or fame, right? And I think that if we do that for a while and get good at it, and we're diligent, players will feel it. They'll feel the difference. I think we'll broaden our market. And if we get good enough at it, then someday we'll be able to see where that next step is, to build games up to their full potential. That's all that I have for you. Do we have time for questions? Yeah? Okay, I'll take questions. Thank you. I see a hand in the back on the left. Do we have microphones, or? Yeah, the rows. Oh, yeah, okay. I don't see them, but they're saying. Yeah, they're there. All right. Oh, yeah.
1, 2. Okay. Hi. You mentioned Portal, but I was wondering whether there are more games that that present such innovation or depth.
Well, I tried. You notice I didn't say the word innovation once during this entire talk. So that
I interpret it as such.
Yeah, you can. But I used to be an innovation and gameplay guy, and I'm moving away from that because I'm finding that innovation can be a useful tool, and Portal certainly had a lot of innovation, right? But I don't think that what people fundamentally responded to in Portal was the innovation. The innovation helped, just like the humor helped and all those things. But what they really responded to was like the whole package, right? Are there other games? I could probably think of a lot if I sat down and thought about it. Surely, not at a level that I want to, just toss out random names in front of an audience like this. My next game was very explorational, but I'm not going to advertise it here. Do we have other questions, or do I take a second one from the same gentleman? Up here.
Just a quick question. How long did it take you to go from doing conventional design to being able to give a talk like this?
Well, I gave a talk after being in games only for 1 year, but it was really bad. So, I don't know. I don't know that your goal should be giving a talk.
No, I mean, to think about games in these terms as opposed to traditional terms?
Yeah, so for me, my thoughts about games have been changing for a long time, right? Slowly, but this last project that I worked on just ended up being very transformative. It pushed me up the ledge, or maybe over the cliff and down. I don't know, but it just I saw a lot of things in that game, and I experienced as a designer a lot of things that were not in the same class as previous games and previous aspirations that I had. So I don't know. I would say you just kind of have to follow what's most interesting to you. And if you keep digging at it, maybe you find the right thing for you. I don't know. And I don't know that it's a matter of time, right? Over here.
Hi, Michael. Great talk, thanks. I was just wondering, like you were saying with BioShock and how it got a lot of praise in the media, but how would you? What's your view and suggestions on actually recognizing these explorations and really trying to drive that content out?
Well, it's a question about whether you mean driving that content out for players, for the public, or for designers, because I think it's a different thing, right? I don't think that we can necessarily tell players what they should like, right? They're going to like what they like. I think critics do help set those expectations or help steer the popular ideas a little bit, right? Not too much, maybe. But as developers, we can definitely, could definitely cultivate that kind of sense, right? And whether or not the public at large understands that, most people don't understand game design, right? So if we develop some relatively weird, subtle idea about designing a game, you don't expect the audience to understand that, but it still probably shows in the work, right? The movie that I showed a still from was Mulholland Drive by David Lynch, which is my favorite movie. I have no idea what David Lynch was thinking when he made that movie or what process he took, but I do feel it, right? I feel it in the movie. That's why I think it's important. So I would say designers first, and if the audience catches onto it in a certain way, great.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I was wondering if you saw maybe the empty gameplay that you talked about, if that's sort of a barrier to new users of video games. Maybe the main people that don't play games are they realize that the gameplay doesn't really fulfill them, so that's why they don't play.
I think yes and no at the same time, right? Yes, for exactly the reason that you said, but no for another very important reason, which is why I think that I may be screwed in all this stuff that I'm saying, right? So it is not an accident that World of Warcraft and every MMO before it have relatively shallow gameplay. It's not an accident because the more intricate the gameplay is, the more, a whole other probably hour-long section of this talk would have been about, asking things of the player, maybe making demands or hoping that they reach some bar as opposed to just, rewarding them for being nobody, right? And that's not, that kind of means challenge in a game, but games don't have to be about challenge, I guess. But, challenge obviously will turn some people away. But also, if you just make the game more about a certain aesthetic, if you make it action-y, or you make it mystery-y or something, as soon as it becomes identifiable in one of those directions, you've lost audience, right? That's why World of Warcraft is boring to play, because if you make it interesting to play, fewer people will actually play it, which I fully believe, right? And so there's kind of this market dynamic pushing it in that direction, and that's a problem. Now, it's that way for this is one situation where what's best for a specific game is maybe worse for the industry, and vice versa, right? If we create one game that tries to make really interesting gameplay and cater to a specific audience, then we're turning away a huge number of people and it's not going to be as popular. But if we make an industry that caters only to a couple of very specific or very boring kinds of games, then we turn away all the people who are not interested in the form because we're putting out bad stuff, but who would have been if we were making all those more individualized games, right? I think I kind of botched that explanation, but hopefully somebody out there understands what I'm saying. It's it's good for the individual game and bad for the overall market, and maybe therefore in the long term bad for the individual game or the sequel or whatever.
Thank you.
Sure. Any more questions? Over here in the white.